Okay, I'll be honest, I really wanted to like this episode, but I found way too many problems with it for me to just, ignore. We start with an indication that this episode should be action-based. The villain is an Indiana Jones pastiche, which shouldn't be a problem as long as it's done well, and I certainly feel like it was. Let me summarize what's going on. Jemica becomes really popular. It's worth noting that we have a scene that uses Jemica's accomplishments to show what's important to each of the girls. Although, this is like the second time they've had Bubbles speak last, and both times it kind of comes across as Bubbles sort of being the punchline to a joke. It's almost like they're saying, "Ha! Look! Bubbles doesn't care about Jemica's accomplishments, she only cares about her clothing. Isn't that fucking shallow?" I don't know, maybe that's just the impression I get. Although considering how much of a brat she gets portrayed as half the time, I somehow doubt it's just my imagination. Anyway, Jemica invites the girls to an archaeological dig. They are mildly enthused by this prospect. A select few of you may recognize the exact wording I used there, and that's because I said this exact line in my Mighty Magosaurus review series. Sanji offers the warriors a chance to be king of the official adventurers of Riboflavin if they complete this mission. They are mildly enthused by this prospect. Notice how much different the warriors' faces are compared to the girls. The warriors have a vastly different facial expression to indicate how much they care, whereas the girls just have fucking stars in their eyes. And hell, we've seen this show produce these meme-worthy faces that show a lot of emotion. And that's the thing about it. As much as I make fun of the meme-worthy faces in this show, there's a reason that those faces are so memorable to me. The buttercup face I use when I say that something is predictable, for example, displays the apathy I feel when it's painfully predictable. And that's the thing. Not only has another show done this better than right here, this show has also done it better, and that's why it's so thoroughly disappointing. We spend a weird amount of time focusing on small details before heading off to the dig site, which they have to sneak into. Very happy, Donnie? I used a fucking Billy Talent meme! There's a really great sequence in front of the entrance to the tomb that has a bunch of little things that I really like. So be prepared for this review to suddenly break the 20-minute mark, probably. I don't know, maybe. Possibly. First of all, Blossom's reaction to the whole 3-ring binder thing. The voice acting is much better than earlier at depicting the surprise. Admittedly, the facial expression could have been done better, but the simple dilation of Blossom's pupils, which we actually see happen with her quite a lot, does a good job of depicting a lot of different emotions based on what else is going on with the face. I certainly do feel that from this facial expression, whereas the fucking stars for the eyes did not really express the excitement very well when the voice did not also present that excitement very well. Next, we have a callback to Buttercup's spear of spiders on the way in. This was something that was established a few episodes ago in Arachno Romance, but there was no real reason to call back to it until now. It's also not really a major fear for Buttercup, it's just sort of a little character quirk. I mean, it's not really important to the plot either, but, it is important in keeping me invested. Using Jemica's cassette player when they change the score is a bit of a nice touch that points to Jemica's egocentricism. But I would like to note that I think it would have been more effective if they cut out the background music, perhaps if they really concerned about not having background music for an extended period of time. When they walk into the tomb, the background music sort of fades out. And then when Jemica hits play, the background music comes back again. I think that would be a nice touch. Now, granted, you could say that it's a little bit much to expect a kid's show to be Tarantino smart with its use of background music, but it's just something that could have been done slightly better. I'm not really bitching about it, but what I am about to bitch about is probably the biggest plot hole in this entire damn episode. So, yeah, now I gotta go back to bashing the thing. Shame. So the girls help Jemica go through a bunch of obstacles, but there's one small problem with this scene. Their powers seem to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Gone. Not that they seem to notice. I mean, they just hopscotch across this freaking pressure plate trap field instead of, flying, because they can fly. And they have trouble holding up this falling roof with spikes on it, which I kind of find hard to believe considering they can pick up buildings with ease. And it's not like the girls using their powers detracts from the episode either. As a matter of fact, I would argue that it adds to it. It actually makes the narrative of Jemica using the girls for her own gain a little bit clearer. Now, I think this was just done for padding, but here's the thing though. You could have just changed the obstacles and gotten the same effect. Made them things that the girls would have had to dodge using their powers. Or maybe, had some kind of monster get awakened and the girls have to fight it or something. Of course, they suddenly remember they can fly when it comes to escaping the collapsing tomb, which they only show the girls exiting. Yeah, yet another place where they could have put in a more active scene. Hell, if the obstacles were too easy before and you just have them just flying through them, add some falling debris as they're trying to escape and have the girls go through that, having to swerve between it and protect Jemica at the same time. That would have added much more than just going straight to the exit. If you had given us something before, I wouldn't have minded you going straight to the exit here either. What I'm saying is, you're lazy assholes who don't want to animate action scenes. The girls find out that what they just did was steal an ancient artifact, and Jemica convinces them to forgive her. Which doesn't make a lot of sense, although I will explain how there's a little bit of brilliance to this in a moment. But this isn't the first episode. We already know that the girls go after people who do wrong. I mean, I guess they could be trying to talk down Jemica and such, and Blossom's being civil, but also wanting the appropriate punishment to be taken. But, they probably shouldn't be accepting jewelry from a known thief. Because you never know if it'll be some sort of magical artifact that lets them take control of your body. Although, now that I think about it, why can't they do the same thing to her? There's no physical difference between the necklaces that indicates Jemica's is the master one. Although, here's where a bit of the genius comes into play. Jemica really held up only 3 necklaces. At least that's the way it appeared. So, yeah, it makes sense that Jemica would already know the master one, does not give them that option. The next thing we see is that Jemica has one on, after all 3 of the other girls have one on. The other bit of genius is that this kind of turns the way the problems are solved in the rest of the show on its ear. You see, most of the time, the girls don't really fully punish whoever did wrong. And in fact, most of the time, the person who did wrong was one of the girls who gets away scot-free. In this episode, because the wrongdoer is not punished, the girls are punished for not punishing the wrongdoer. It's very clever in this interesting, subtle way. I don't think that was intentional. We get a sequence of Jemica displaying the power of the necklaces with the most stereotypical British chimney sweep accent ever.
Apples and pears! Me voice done changed, it did!
Seriously, I'm betting Hugh Laurie wants to slap me in the face for playing that clip right now. Jemica gets the girls to kidnap the professor and they sneak onto a plane. Which is yet another cool scene that we don't really get to see. Yeah, see, we spend so much time on this...
Right rubbish!
Yeah. We spend so much time on that we don't really have time for scenes that, actually add to the narrative of the episode. At least the scene where Jemica actually gets the 2 artifacts together doesn't drag a whole lot. Although, when the professor was reading the ancient language, it was a little bit on the stupid side. I don't think it should have been cut out. I think it was a perfectly fine scene. Just should have been, I don't know, maybe written either more stupid or less stupid. One of the 2. Anyway, the conjoined artifacts blow the back of the plane open and both it and the professor go flying out. So now things are gonna get good. Or, well, they should get good. See, this is the point where the girls are naturally going to break the mind control and save the professor. But they break free of the mind control while standing there the entire damn time. Yeah, if the artifact and the professor were in 2 different directions, this would make perfect sense. one's in one direction, one's in the other direction. So, since the girls are having to fight between following the orders of the mind control and going to save the professor, they can't go in either direction. Except for the fact that they both went out the same damn hole in the back of the plane! This entire scene would have been so much better if they were having to break the mind control while out of the plane instead of standing there inside of it the whole time. There is exactly one reason that they are not out flying while fighting the mind control, and I have news for you, it's not dramatic effect. It'd be dramatic if the two items were in two different directions, thus they would have a reason to not go anywhere. If there were two holes in the side of the plane, and the professor went out one, the artifact went out the other, that would make sense. But this doesn't. Instead, we just get, well, better just stand here the whole time, even after we break the mind control and can move independently. Dude, fuck that ending. I don't even care that there's like a minute or two left in the episode. It doesn't change anything. This episode should have been really good. The story writing for the episode was pretty good. Other than, you know, some plot holes. The big one with them not using their powers in the tomb, I mean, I guess you could sort of write around that, but they don't really write around it. They just treat it as something that is perfectly normal, and I don't really like it. I wanted to really enjoy this episode. It should have been a good episode, but it wasn't, and now I'm just pissed off. It's just small things that really screwed this episode over.